Where is Europe? I mean, granted, everybody in Brussels is worried about Brexit, but certainly most of the people in this room would want and expect more engagement from Europe here, because when there's a conflict in Libya, everyone comes to the table, breaks it, doesn't fix it, and runs away. Now we have more conflict in Libya, for example. Then that's just a small example. Where's Europe?
I think Europe is around, Europe is engaged, but never at the level, and that's sometimes because the parties don't want it. Let's say Israeli-Arab conflict, for instance, Europe has never been an active negotiator because one of the parties is not necessarily asking the European Union to take on a role. So if you look at Libya, the European Union, I think, is more actively there, on Syria, certainly in the case of Yemen. But we often support the international actors, in this case mostly UN-led efforts. We want them to succeed, and the European Union mostly supports actually the humanitarian track, some of it political. Europe is engaged, but we're also a partner on a bilateral level, the Union as well as, let's say, the Kingdom of the Netherlands, to all these countries. We have framework agreements, we have negotiations, we have association agreements. I think I'd like to take the discussion also a little bit, not just only to the crises, but in all countries, one way or another, the institutions have, to a lesser or greater degree, failed generations of their own citizens. There is a need for a social contract, irrespective of the conditions of the country, be it a failed state, failing state, crisis, new crisis. Nothing or not everything can be relayed to the Israeli-Arab conflict. I mean, the successive generations have grown up in a confined space, no jobs, no future, limited investment, a public sector that is bloated and cannot create the jobs for a new generation. I would venture that many young people in the region today don't affiliate so much to the rallying cry of the Arab-Israeli conflict. At an emotional level, they may do. They want to know what their government, their country is doing for them to help them build new lives. So
we've talked so often about this, about the potential for a Marshall Plan for Europe. Yeah. But at the same time, who's going to take the leadership on that? Because it doesn't seem as if the United States is. Will it be Europe?
No, because leadership ultimately always has to come from the countries within. And I think Minister Safadi speaks to that. The Prime Minister of Jordan speaks to the macroeconomic reform plan for Jordan. King Abdullah does so. In Lebanon, there is a big plan. Leadership on reform, on improvement, social progress needs to come from within countries. The European Union can either support politically, can invest, which we're doing, but ultimately, we're not in a neo-colonial era, thank God. This is not the case. This is for the people of the region to determine, but which is where citizenship and social contracts come in. If you speak on conflicts, yes, we would love the European Union, I think, to play a more active role, but as you know, on many issues that divide precisely this region, the European Union doesn't necessarily always have the same views. You see that on our conferences. On the two-state solution, however, there is an EU position, and we are supportive of many of the issues that Minister Safadi has just highlighted. When it comes to Iranian, the nuclear deal, the European Union is in support of the nuclear deal. We have not opted out. We are looking for dialogue. But, for instance, we have our own stressors with the United States at the moment, be it on tariffs and on trade. So I think the disengagement of the US as a very important, critical, historical player in this region, I think is of a concern to all of us. And it's important we remain in dialogue, and we seek also the upholding of international law and international humanitarian law. That is definitely an EU position, and you will see that reflected in our Council positions. Now, the non-permanent members, Germany and Belgium, are doing that, alongside the UK and France. So international law, maintaining of international law and order is very critical. That is the voice of Europe. But are we a superpower? Not in that sense, no. Are we an economic power? Yes. And in today's world, 21st century, if we're talking the fourth industrial revolution, I think there is a lot more that could be offered by Europe, but we do this in partnership with the region. I think that's extremely important. And the EU Arab States, or the League of Arab Summit that recently took place, spoke to all the issues that were shared. Politics, economics, but also social dividends. Because the social dividend, the social human capital of this region cannot be ignored, it cannot be put in the fridge waiting for political solutions. They need to come together, they need to be maintained, and they need to be, it's an intricate embroidery. It's tatriz.